right. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to begin in just a moment. So sit tight. And we're going to have a really fun conversation in just a few minutes. There we go. Mr. Paul, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. It's great to hear your voice.
Excellent. It's great to hear your voice. You know, we can do some obligatory pre-session banter. For those that don't know, Paul is my birthday buddy. Paul and I share the same birthday. We won't tell you when or what year because that would give away how old we are.
Also, one of the obvious questions, what's your date of birth?
Yeah, that would not be good for a security webinar to be giving out PII.
No.
Shubha, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Or maybe good afternoon. So, yeah.
Exactly.
And good evening if you're watching in a different time zone.
Yes.
No matter where you are in the world,
yes.
Happy day. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. It's about 1 or 2 minutes after 9. We'll take care of the fun introductions and we'll get into the meat of this presentation. So first of all, hello, everyone. As we said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from. This session is very exciting, a panel discussion to discuss the threats, the trends, and the actions you can take away from JFrog's recently published Software Supply Chain State of the Union for 2025. I am so thrilled to be joined by two of my favorite people, Shubha Gururaja Rao and Paul Davis. Shubha is, of course, our director, one of our directors of solution engineering. She's worked with many companies to help them solve their DevOps and security challenges. Paul is our field CISO. He's going to bring you that real, I've been there, I've had my neck on the chopping block. Here's what it's like from a senior security perspective. And we're going to have a really fun conversation talking about some of the data points that I found most interesting. And I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Sean Pratt. I am a senior manager here on the product marketing team, but notably, I was one of the leads in developing this report. So I'm perhaps closer to it than anyone. So these are really the things that I thought were interesting that I think you all would find were interesting as well. So with that, guys, anything else you want to say about yourselves before we jump into the session?
No, just managing my paranoia. Nothing changes there. I'm a security person.
I'm good to go as well. Most of the fueling Paul's paranoia to an extent as well. So.
Okay, let's try to keep Paul from having a massive freak out in this. All right. So here's one of the first things I wanted to chat about with you all. And I'm going to do a little bit of back and forth. We'll start with Paul for a couple of these data points. Then Shubha will switch to let you be the lead voice on these. The first thing that really jumped out to me when I was looking at the data was, where does your kind of software supply chain start? And the fact that organizations are allowing developers to download packages or other libraries or components directly from public registries or the internet. And an incredible, to me, 71% said, yeah, we allow developers to download directly from the internet. That compounding data point that went with it was that, of those people that are allowing the downloads from the internet, 26% are trying to do enforce restrictions or rules manually. 72 are using automated processes. Paul, I'm curious what this data point made you feel when you first saw it.
Very afraid is a good way of describing it, because nowadays, as we all know, the software supply chain is an attack point for the people that are trying to get in and take advantage of your infrastructure and steal things. And the fact that we don't have any controls to protect our developers or if we do, we're trying to do it manually, which is just an impossible thing, and just the quantity of packages that you're looking at and trying to develop with. I mean, it was 80% of software is using open source. And now we're allowing these developers and data scientists to all go out there and just pick the things. And a lot of times they're more focused on solving the solution, not the security aspects. I spend a lot of time talking to customers about licensing, whether it's permissive or whether you really want to go AGPL or permit, that sort of copyleft licensing. And it wastes everybody's time, right? So, and this is a serious thing. In the past, we talked about script kiddies that would kind of go and scan. These are targeted campaigns. We have multiple research reports out there, and many others do, about how they're attacking the repos, putting pseudo things out there. We have weaponized, as I call them, LLMs, where they're basically the actual act of installing and downloading the LLM infects the workstation or compromises them. This is stuff we want to get. I mean, it's really important, and we've got to stop this. We've got to start protecting ourselves against this mess, because it's you can't, and you need tools. You can't manual processes. There's just so much tech debt backlog on trying to catch up on this stuff. It's just crazy. So my thing is first of all, let's stop doing something. Let's start protecting each other, because it's not just me, but it's everybody that we're trying to protect.
That's a really good point. And Shubha, I would love your take on this. When we surveyed 1,400 individuals, 71%, it's quite a lot. And I'm curious your take on how are they automating some of these enforcing restrictions? Is it as part of their CI process when they submit a pull request or push request? What is your take on it as you've been working with organizations across the globe?
Yeah, so Sean, while I definitely agree that this is scary, this is not something that comes as a surprise, because I've spoken to thousands of customers, and all of them are like, okay, we want to make the developer experience as easy as possible, because of which I want to keep it open and I want to keep it flexible. But automation is definitely something that's coming into picture quite a lot right now. And remember, these pulls of dependencies or using third-party libraries happens both from your developer desktop while you're coding and during your build process as well. So having one place where you're downloading the artifacts or these dependencies from, having a trusted place from where you're downloading these dependencies would be the first way to go. And from an automation perspective, this is where it becomes a bit trickier, because automation is built for scaling, but at the same time, with automation comes another challenge wherein you want to have the flexibility. So these are the two things that we definitely do have to keep in mind when we are coming up with a solution for this. But the first part that you have to think about is, okay, where are my artifacts coming from? Is this a trusted place? And whatever I'm downloading, is that repeatable? Is that something that I can control? Would be the thing to keep in mind.
That's a really good point, Shubha. Flexibility, does it scale, repeatable, which I think ties us into the next data point, which is, all right, we've talked about sourcing the packages and allowing people to download them automatically, but how many packages does that look like? How many new packages are developers bringing in, and how long does it take to get those approvals to use those packages? I was really curious to see this in the data. We looked at for JFrog SaaS, JFrog Cloud customers, how often are new packages being added to their instances or their tenant? And we found that when we kind of excluded some of the dormant accounts, it ends up looking like 458 new packages a year, 38 a month, or a little over one a day. Now, that's, to me, seems like an interesting number. Okay, a new package every day that you need to look at. How long do developers have to wait to get approval for these? You talk about developer experience, having to wait a week or more, that feels like a long time. If you're working on 2-week sprints and you're trying to ship products, having to wait a week to get permission to use a new library feels like that grinds things to a halt. Paul, what is your take on that?
Well, we live in a new world where everything moves faster. We carry our computers around, our iPhones, our Androids, whatever. We want instant gratification. And that translates into the world of software development, where to be agile, to be competitive in the marketplace, there's this, we have to move fast. But at the same time, we've got to build trust in place. So we really need to trust the software. And then we're talking to people, the developers, who are creative people that like to solve problems. And you get into that creative spirit. I call myself a recovering developer because I still develop. But you get in the creative spirit. You don't want to have to wait a week for someone to say, yeah, this package you're really excited about, you can play with now. And you're like, whoa, this is horrible to do. So, and this is just brand new packages, new software you have not incorporated. This is not new versions, new iterations of the existing software. This is brand new packages. And I'm telling a developer, hey, all that enthusiasm, you've been sitting here doing the research, digging through, and now it's going to take you a week to wait for the answer. They're developers, they'll find a way around it, right? And then we have the problem, it's now inside the system. So this really is horrible. I mean, there is a really silly saying I learned last year. It sounds so obvious. The easiest way to get secure is to automate it. If you're doing manual process, that's hurting. That's yesterday's world. And with this number, this is a low number. We got customers that have much more volumes. But this is just brand new packages you've never even seen before, never even thought about using inside your environment. And now you got to wait a week. I'm impatient. So I want to play now, not next week.
Shubha, what do you think about this? I mean, surely you're hearing a focus about developer experience, and this feels to be very contrary to organizations' goals in that area.
Exactly. So as Paul mentioned, right, I actually had a customer for whom the developers basically had to wait anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks to get approval on one artifact, right? So this goes both ways. For most of the companies that I'm talking to right now, for them, there are two metrics that they're looking at, right? One is developer experience, and the other one is developer productivity. Experiences, as Paul mentioned, you want to have the flexibility. As developers, we'll figure out a way. We'll see what we can get. But then developer productivity is, see, at the end of the day, engineers are the most expensive resource in many of the tech-oriented companies as such. So you have to make sure that they're not sitting, you're not waiting around for something to be available so that you can continue your coding process further. So developer productivity is very important. So if you're waiting for 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, even if you're waiting for a week, in many of the tech companies, think about it. You're waiting for a week for an artifact to be available for you. That means once you get it, you go through the coding process, then you go through the builds, you have your security checks in the process as well. At the end of the day, all of this matters is the way it matters to a company is the time to market, right? This can actually add weeks, if not even months, for a company to deliver a product into the market. That means they've also lost the competitive edge. So you have to look at these things from multiple perspectives. So there are KPIs that a company has to go with, but even within the team, you can't just waste your engineers' time by just waiting for an artifact to be approved. So as Paul mentioned, having the approval process as automated as possible would be the way to go.
Shubha, one quick follow-up on that. I'm curious your take, and I'd love a 1-minute responses. What do you think the best organizations are doing? Are they kind of saying, hey, we have the tools, we have some processes in place, we're going to let you play with a package perhaps so that they can start experimenting with it. And then, at a certain state or stage in their SDLC, they say, hey, look, you could play with it up until this point, but then it needs to be approved and vetted. So that maybe lets them start to use it while they're going through that process of ensuring it's okay. What do you see the best companies doing?
So couple of things. See, the thing is, if you let them play around and then put a stop, at any point in time, you're actually wasting resources, right? Then you have to go back. And so if I say, okay, I'll put the gate in the CI process, then I wasted time during my coding process on by using this, right? So there are two things that we have to think about. One is give your developers as much information as possible so that they can make their own decisions, is one. You're also giving them the knowledge saying, hey, you know what, you're okay to use this, you have access to this, but if you do use this, this does not comply with your company policy. So educating or enabling them with this knowledge would be important. And it's more than a gating mechanism. I would say having guardrails in some of these things would work much better.
Great. I love that approach. It's shifting left security, but it's also shifting left information. It sounds
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, Paulie, this is the last one I want you to start with, and this is I know this is going to give you anxiety, so let's try to keep it at bay. The JFrog security research team at the end of the year did a scan of 3 of the most popular public registries out there, Docker Hub, NPM, and PyPy. And they detected 25,000 secrets, of which at the time of their analysis, 6,700 were active tokens. That means, if we had not nice people that had these, they could do bad stuff. I mean, that's crazy. Paul, how is this still this much of an issue in your mind? Because secret exposures, token exposures, it's not a new thing. It's not a new phenomenon. What's going on here, Paul?
I wish I knew, to be honest, because, we do these reports, we go out and we say, and this is how we're doing. We actually got worse. It went up. Year on year, 64%. I mean, this is obvious stuff. This is not like we don't have the tools out there to discover secrets and tokens and stuff like that. This is really silly, simple things that we have the tools. We just have to standardize the process. We have to streamline it so that we can pick it up. It's very easy, right? To make that mistake, but we have lots of tools which pick up secrets, whether it's in the source code, in the binary, in the infrastructure. Those tools exist, right? So, and the thing is, it's like the OWASP top 10. We still got the same top ones. I mean, we all say, "Oh, this is terrible, it's terrible," and then we go off and do nothing. It's very, very frustrating. So we really need to get this under grip, because this is, somebody gets your token and the active means they could actually compromise and leverage them. They were real. You just don't want to do it. I'm not even going to bring up quantum computing. And once you know the format of a secret, you can go and have even more fun. But, we've got to get better, and we've got to start protecting ourselves better. But this is bad. Is it bad for the developers, bad for DevOps, DevSecOps, MLSecOps? Really bad. So we need to get better. This is a simple thing to fix.
Yeah, and it seems like it's an organizational issue. It's an individual developer issue. We talk about it a little bit in the report. Yeah. The PyPy token that we discovered and obviously disclosed it responsibly to that organization so that they could remediate it. But that could have been really, really bad for everyone. I mean, it could have been huge. Shubha, what is your take? I mean, secret detection tools have been around. Do we need better training for developers on practices? Do we need to kind of share some of these tools? When people are working on personal projects, like what do you think needs to be done to try to remedy this issue?
So it's a combination of multiple things, I would say, Sean, and I agree. So one of the things that we did last year was it was not one customer. I think we had a bunch of companies we reached out to. When we scanned their GitHub projects, we found their access tokens or keys, even in plain plain text as such. So one of the things that we have always, so this is a best practice that we talk to many customers about as well, is you have to have a combination of multiple things. One is definitely enablement, and I don't even want to get into the AI for now. But AI is definitely one of the, or we have multiple tools that companies or developers are using to generate code today, right? And these code, when you just generate it, you have to be very responsible. Or if you're copying code from somewhere, you have to be responsible on what type of code that you're copying. It goes to some of the fundamental best practices as well. So hard coding stuff is never the right thing. And Sean, as you said, this is something that has been a rule for since coding started as such, right? Since we started coding, since computers came into picture, it has to be a combination of all of those things. One is enablement. Let them know that this is not something that would be allowed. Second one is also having tools in place to detect these things as early as possible. For example, when someone commits a code into your GitHub, make sure you're scanning it right there and then and telling them, hey, when you committed, these are the anomalies or these are the issues that I see. Go ahead and fix it right away. One other thing that we can also do is maybe do something on the IDE plugin as well, right? So if you can give the information as early as possible, you're not wasting time and resources. Because all of these, again, just imagine if I have an access token on a GitHub page, as Paul mentioned, it can lead to multiple things. At the end of the day, it's the company's IP that can be in jeopardy as well, while giving a competitive edge to another company in the market, in the same market. So it has to be a combination of things.
Right. I hope that next year this number goes down,
Yes.
but who knows? We'll see. We'll see. Okay. When we talked, Paul, you mentioned this a little bit about scanning at the code and the binary level. This is something that really jumped out to me when we think about software supply chain security. There's all these tools. There's a million scanners, there's a million vendors. But how you use those tools, I was so surprised to see that scanning at both the code and the binary level is not being done by the majority of organizations that we surveyed. And to me, that just feels like, how can you have a complete picture of your security posture if you're not scanning across both types of development assets? Shubha, did this number surprise you? It went down actually from last year, but why aren't more people doing both code scanning and binary scanning as a best practice?
Yeah, while as Sean, you mentioned, while I'm happy that there is an uptake in the code scanning and binary scanning separately, there is definitely, I see that it is down from 56% to 43%, which is definitely a surprise, because the companies that I'm talking to right now, they do understand that. So there are a mix of things, right? One is from if it is a budget, if it is a maturity perspective, most of the companies say, hey, you know what, I want to start from code scanning. Then I'll look at binary scanning as a second step. But hold on, binary scanning, if you look at your code, your first party code compared to your third party code, it's sometimes even you have more third party dependencies that you have in your code rather compared to the first party, right? So I strongly urge companies to not just look at things from specifically security from a step-by-step perspective. It has to be an overall thing, right? Have a tool, or go with a solution that gives you a more overall picture, rather than go with, okay, I'll do SAST first, and then I'll do an SCA first, and then I'll do runtime next. That cannot be the case. For a company to be enterprise level, and when you're scaling, you have to have good base rules and base set of tools that you can build upon as well. So this is definitely sad to see that it has gone down.
Yeah. Paul, surely there are certain types of exposures that you could only detect in either of these places, right? So what are folks missing here if they're not doing both?
It's almost like we've got tunnel vision, and that we just see things coming in at the front door, And then once we secure the code, everything's good and we can just throw it into production, everything's safe. The trouble is that it's not one path. There are other doors that impact your environment. Say you're building a product and a new vulnerability comes out, or somebody decides to do, a 0-day comes out. You're completely blissfully ignorant, and you say, "Oh well, I used this library last year. It's great. Everything's wonderful. Right, brilliant." The trouble is that if you're kind of missing the stages, and this is very important in today's world of regulatory compliance and about the need to prove it. As I go, prove my security. Is my software safe? Is it good? And I think it's almost like, I don't understand why it's gone down, but then gone up in certain areas. It's very, very strange to see that. But it also lends again to, we're not standardizing us and streamlining. And I spend a lot of time with executives and leaders of organizations, helping them streamline. And this is just the opposite. It's strange, very strange. So, and it's almost like a maturity thing. If everybody wants to mature their software supply chain, they want efficiencies, they want to be safer, they want to be faster, they want to be more agile. We want developers to be having fun. We want security people to be having fun. Everybody having fun, right? This is not fun. So we need to work on making life more fun. And once again, it goes down to automation. This doesn't have to be painful. So, I mean, it really is, and we have to realize that it's, unfortunately, this is my paranoia, it's a horrible world full of threats, and we have to protect everybody. And everybody on this call, attending, presenting, our job is to protect the world, and we need to take that on. And it means also being, situational awareness of your source code at all stages.
Right. Paul, you know the movie The Sixth Sense, that famous M. Night Shyamalan movie? You're like that little boy, but you're like, I see vulnerabilities everywhere. That's you, Paul. And maybe rightfully so. Maybe rightfully so.
I see weaknesses.
when we think about, and this is a good transition to our next topic here, when we think about all these vulnerabilities, and you talked about the maturity of organizations, it seems like the way to address that is we scan, and we scan, and we scan, and we keep buying more tools, and we keep implementing more tools, and different teams over here might use this tool, and this team over here uses another tool. It's crazy to me that it seems like, okay, year over year, organizations are reporting using more security tools, yet we hear from the market a desire to consolidate. And when we look on the right image that we have up here, there's not one that's dominant, right? The two most popular are SAST and actually like API security. Mm-hmm. Shubha, why is it in a world in which we want to mature and we want to streamline, we're still seeing more than 7 application security tools and still having all these gaps in our security posture?
Yeah, so this is not a surprise slide for me. With many of the companies that I talk to, they say, "Hey, I wanna." When we talk about security, right? So they're like, "Yeah, this is something that we do want to look at, but there are all these different tools that I have. So I want to see what is the value add of the security that you're talking about, right?" So when I talk to them about how many security tools, most of them can just from the top of their mind, they can say at least 3 or 4 tools, right? And they say there are many more. This happens typically for a couple of reasons. One, as the company is scaling, different teams tend to use their own different tools. That is one. The second one is the DevOps team says, yes, these are the tools that I want to use. But then there are security team that comes in and says, hey, no, these are the ones that I want you to use, right? So there are different issues that happen when you have multiple tools in place as well. So one of the issues that I hear most commonly is because of the number of tools that I have, the problem occurs is the data that you are getting out of it, and what sense can you make out of the data that you are getting out of all these things. So this is definitely one of the biggest issues that I see. So when you approach the tool set, in this case, be it security, be it any tool set that you're bringing in, you have to think about how it integrates with the other tool sets that you have within your organization. So this is not a surprise, but this is definitely something that I'm working with a lot of companies on to see what can be consolidated. So yeah.
That's great to hear that it is true. Organizations want to consolidate. Paul, one of the thoughts I had, I'm wondering your opinion on it, is, ASPM is a new category, or relatively new category of tool that seems to help say, hey, we'll take all your security scan results, we'll cut through the chaff and give you the results. Is that the right way to go? Should we rely on just saying, hey, we can still have all these tools and we'll throw in ASPM and that'll make sense of everything and we'll be all happy and we don't have to worry about anything?
So I'm still resonating on the sixth sense, because I also see dead consoles everywhere, right? Because the thing is with greater complexity comes greater confusion. And if you have 5 tools doing the same thing, which I have seen, and the data is siloed and left there, it doesn't matter what you do with the ASPM. And I sometimes ask customers, are you in the business of integrating your tools or actually writing software? And so they keep adding on these tools, etc. And it's because, and it's a symptom of how we've grown up as a develop a security-oriented organization. Oh, I need a tool for this. I need a tool for this. I need a tool for this. And the problem with that is now we end up with all these tools. And as Shubha mentioned, we spend a lot of time helping people, like saying, what is the best path to success? How can I start unifying, provide the right level of security, compliance, control, so that I can simplify it, so that onboarding, say, a new development team is cheaper, right? How can I make it more efficient? How can I measure success at every stage? What's the adoption? And a lot of companies, they say, well, this team uses this SCN, somebody uses this and this and this. And you sit there and say, well, how do you combine the data? Oh, we don't combine the data. So you're running it independently, and then you want to feed it to an ASPM to understand how your posture. You're going to get conflict. And I work with executives, I indicated, they want to simplify things. The problem is that we like toys, we like tools. But at a certain point, we have to start normalizing. It's a database term. We have to start normalizing the data so that it starts to clean up and have structure. And with all these additional tools, it's crazy. To keep adding it in. And so we have to kind of step back, take a deep breath and say, are these tools doing the same thing? And is the output, as Shubha indicated, being used not just one time? It's like I hear lots of people pushing out S-bombs. Nobody knows what to do with S-bombs. I've had S-bombs in development, which is just crazy. I've had S-bombs everywhere. It's like we have a bucket of S-bombs. What the hell do we do with it? If you don't have a use case for it, why are you doing it? And do you really need to produce the S-bomb if you've got a system of record? So all these tools, it's a general thing. And we're going to be calling some people's tools ugly, right? And so we've got to kind of step up and say, yeah, this makes sense. I'm not asking you to compromise security, but I am asking you to simplify.
It's that the old adage, less is perhaps more in this case.
Yeah. So Sean, one thing that I can also add here is one of the reasons that I hear from companies is that, hey, you know what, I have all these compliances that I have to adhere to, because of which I need these security tools, right? But hold on, what are these compliances? So think of a tool that can probably help you with, covering most of these, or covering at least 90% of these, and see what you have to do or what you can do for the rest of the coverage, right? Whereas if you are actually ending up using multiple tools, you're spending much more time in making sense of the data in order to comply. And as Paul mentioned, are you spending time in understanding the data, or are you spending time in just putting the data together? It's where you prioritize what needs to be done.
And the worst thing I hear is, oh, what you do with that? Oh, we manually review it.
Exactly.
Oh, please do not do that to me, please. It's like, okay, why?
You'll never get to the end of that manual list.
No.
Let's move on to I'm sure we could rant about too many scanners, too many tools all day. And Paul, this might be your chance to talk about the elephant that was in the room that's not in the room with MITRE and CVEs. But I want to start with the fact that we all use CVEs. All of your scanners are looking for vulnerabilities based on a CVE database from NVD and perhaps other sources. But we often find, this is some research done by the JFrog security research team, was that the CVSS score is perhaps being inflated, or it's not accurately representing the true severity of a vulnerability, either because it's just not going to be applicable or how it can be exploited. They often, when they looked at a sample of around 180 CVEs, they either downgraded and based on the JFrog severity score, or they found that it just wasn't applicable. When they looked at actual customers' implementation of that package or that library, they said, there's no way this could ever be exploited in real world use cases. So Shubha, what does that mean? I mean, clearly CVEs are important, but what does that mean for an organization in terms of how they think about addressing vulnerabilities and prioritizing and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So Sean, this is an interesting one because while CVSS scorings and CVEs have been in the market for quite a while, and that's something that that is important. For me, I see it more like a baseline, right? And while they are important and it does give us information on what are the issues and what's happening or why these issues, it also depends on how you're using the artifact that matters much more, right? For example, I'll take 2 points in this. The first point is, let's just go back to Log4j, right? Log4j was something that came up, and I'm sure that it actually ruined many companies' Christmas as well. So everyone was like, okay, just because Log4j is there, I have to fix it. But even before fixing it, I have to know where that issue is or where that artifact is, and then go ahead and fix it. The problem was, as I said, many companies did not know where Log4j was present, what version of Log4j was present, what version of Log4j has the issue, and whether they are even affected by this or not, right? And what is the level of impact of this as well. So this is where understanding how you're using the artifact and whether this is something that's applicable to you or not is much more important to prioritize what needs to be fixed and what can be the next level. Why does all this matter? This matters, again, there are two aspects to it, right? One is the technical aspect that, yes, you want to make sure that the artifacts that you're using and the artifacts that you're deploying do not have any issues in it. But at the same time, if you look at this thing from maybe a cost perspective, how much time are you spending, or how much time equals to money in many of the cases, how much time are you spending in fixing things that are not actually relevant and that does not impact you at the end of the day is what is important, right? So anytime you're looking at a CVE and how it affects, you're looking at both the technical aspects and you're also looking at things from a cost perspective. So maybe, Paul, what do you think about this?
Well, we'll talk about the greatest false positive recently occurring, as I call it. But the thing for me is I've had threat intel teams in my security teams and with my dev teams, etc. The CVS score is just one particular aspect. You need to have multiple sources data. It's like a lot of times, a sign of maturity is when I get a customer saying to me or somebody asking me, hey, can I set up my own score level? So the CVS score is the first indicator of badness. And if you just rely upon the CVS score, you're going to be shouting out a lot of times when it isn't really applicable, right? So I would say, a lot of people say trust and verify. Not in my world. In my world, if I want to have a good career and I want to, beat the statistics on being a CISO, etc., I verify, and then maybe trust. So I take the CVS score. I look at it. I see which applications it impacts. Where are those applications in my infrastructure? What's the criticality? Am I actually calling the function? Those sorts of things. But the first indicator is going to be that CVS score. It's the first thing which starts to help you prioritize all these alerts coming in. And so it's really, really important to do that. And also, I think that recent event where MITRE had a funding issue, as they say, was a wake-up call for us to say, hey, we need to have a better perspective on what's going on, being able to assess threat. And I like to think that people say, well, what else do we use for validating our threat intelligence? What other threat intel organizations are we using to understand what could impact our production environment? Because there's kind of two aspects. There's the development side, which is, are they bringing in a bad package, a malicious package, one that's dangerous? And then there's the other side of the story, which is once it's in production, you could get new vulnerabilities appear for those packages, even though it's not a development side. So you need to have that philosophy. You need to that. And the CVS score is critical. But the real problem with it is there was this tendency we discovered to actually increase, the scores are increasing, which is, we have no explanation why people are deciding to increase the score. Maybe it's bragging rights. I have no idea, right? But it just means that, when I've done threat intel and risk scoring stuff, I have a confidence factor with each one. None of the sources are 100%. So the CVS score might be 90, 85% weighting on it. I trust it, but I want other sources to, confirm that I really should be worrying about this. So it's another wake-up call to the way you assess risk inside your environment.
Yeah, it's like if everything is a P0, if the CVSS scores keep getting higher and higher and everything's critical and everything's a P0, then nothing's a P0.
Yeah.
Right. It's impossible to operate under that. Someone on the session here, Jesse, said CVSS score versus vulnerability prioritization rating, VPR. CVSS provides a foundational understanding. Paul, that's like what you chat about. It kind of sets your baseline. And VPR complements CVS by offering actionable insights based on real-time threat intelligence, enabling organizations to focus on the most pressing vulnerabilities. I think that is the most important thing that, Paul, I've heard you say, Shubha, I've heard you say, is that you need context, you need additional information, you have to think about where and how it's actually used, and that then enables you to prioritize all of these vulnerabilities that you might have in an application you're developing, when in reality, some of them are just not actually vulnerabilities or exposures or risk that you need to worry about.
Yeah, I've never heard of an organization said I've cleared out all my vulnerabilities and I'm going for a vacation.
Yeah,
I've yet to hear that one. I don't think we ever will, but we can hope.
One day. Okay, we're at our last data point, and come on, guys, it's 2025. You don't think we would really do any sort of session without talking about AI/ML, do you? But at least we saved it for last, and we're not going to lead with it. In this year's report, we wanted to look at, how are organizations consuming and starting to build and incorporate AI services into their applications, and of course, what does that mean for risk, a new source of risk that organizations have to mitigate? One of the things that we found, we kind of asked, okay, how are you consuming ML models? Most are using off-the-shelf commercial models, accessing it via API, 64%. But a significant portion are also either self-hosting proprietary models, even 47% self-hosting open source models from a place like Hugging Face, for example. When we combine that data point with how are you governing the model artifacts that you're bringing in. Think about the first couple data points that we started the session on. Most are using certified lists, but they're using those lists and they're doing, again, manual efforts to try to say, no, these are the okay ones and these aren't, and some are using tools. Shubha, Paul, I'll do this one as a toss-up. Either of you can answer first. What's the big risk here with AI as we start to build and incorporate AI into our consumer-facing and business-facing applications? What do you guys feel about these data points and what they mean for organizations and the concern that there has to be out there?
Go on, Shubha.
So I would say like AI ML is like the new big shiny thing right now, right? So as Sean, you mentioned, everyone wants to be in AI. Every developer wants to be working on AI ML models. Every team wants to be doing something about it. Every product has to have AI ML as part of it. We get questions from customers asking, "Hey, why aren't you using AI ML? When can I see AI ML on Artifactory?" Or
Oh, we lost Shubha here momentarily.
Okay.
Paul.
Okay. So
jump in.
Right. So the problem with this is that we've had machine learning for a long time. Natural language sentiment as Shubha, you jammed on us. You got stuck. So do you want to take?
Yeah, let's let Shubha pick back up. You're saying that
okay.
organizations have been asking about managing AI ML and Artifactory, for example. That's kind of where we lost you.
Yeah. So the thing is, everyone is looking at AI ML. The problem, however, is that it's still in very nascent stages. That means every team is actually experimenting with AI. What this also means is they have their own set of models that they're using, and there is no comprehensive way of managing these models, or where are these models coming from, or what is the data that is being used to train these models. Just recently, in the last few months, is where I'm hearing the DevOps team.
Oh, we're losing Shubha again. She heard something really interesting from the DevOps team.
Yep. She's downloading an LLM in the background. So
good one, Paul.
Okay.
Paul, let's jump to you, and then we'll let Shubha come back.
So the real problem is that a lot of organizations are either blocking it in totally, not allowing anybody to go outside because they're kind of worried. The compliance side has said this is dangerous. We've got others who are incorporating it into their dev world, so they're using it for code gen, which is luckily maturing. It's getting better, not perfect. My code gen system now doesn't embed passwords in my code. It does it as environmental parameters. Yay. Still need to do the binary scanning. Yay. But the biggest challenge is that it needs to be streamlined. Again, I'm afraid we're back to streamlining about the process of like managing the models, managing the data sets. And these are large things. These things eat gigs of space. And a lot of times now people are saying, they want to build that trusted repo of models and data sets. And the other thing is if you're developing, so you say you might take an open standard from Hugging Face and LLM, and then you try to enhance it with RAG and add on more data. Well, now you've got a PII concern and you've got an issue. And then we're going to talk about agentic AI, which goes and does things. If you don't have the controls in place, right, then it is. And the only way we can get a handle on the risk is by controlling it, right? So, and we know that, as I put it, LLMs can be attacked at the development stage, at the design stage, and in production, right?
Right.
And you can also have insider threats. Somebody could actually start inserting bad stuff into your existing data. You could leak things. There are many stories about AI agents or Gen AI going wild. And the problem is that this approval process has to be, the only way you can start doing it is by managing the models, centralizing that process, and actually starting to provide a structure around securing it, because it's vastly more complex than your straight DevOps. I mean, in the world of machine learning, we talk about experimentation. in developers, if a developer came to me when I have my software houses, oh, I'm experimenting, I'd be like, what are you doing? And I'm building a feature store. Why? And that sort of stuff. So we need to put structure around it, and by we're not just taking straight models off the shelf now. We're taking models off the shelf and enriching them with our own data, and that means your risk profile, your risk strategy, your exposure is much, much higher, and you need to start managing it. And self-hosting is one of the ways you start building your own models, because we don't like to. We're always worried about our data being used to train other models. I mean, there's news articles every week about some AI engine wanting to get access to some data set or being sued or whatever. So this is a big problem. So self-hosting is a good thing, but it's also expensive. And if you don't manage the resources, it's going to be one of those expense items that's going to hurt.
Yeah, it seems there's a couple of interesting things, coalescing around this data, right? We saw, in a way, it feels like what's happening with open models. It feels like reminiscent of a decade plus ago with the explosion in open source packages and libraries. I mean, we saw over 1 million new models and data sets added to Hugging Face last year. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, in the report, you'll see that the spike in the bar graph there, and you're like, okay, that's a big jump. This has hit the mainstream. At the same time, you mentioned it is a threat vector. There's malicious models that are being put in there. We saw close to a 6.5x increase in malicious models, and now the JFrog security team, and we're partnering with Hugging Face to, help identify where those malicious models are so that they can, be taken out of play. But Shubha, you mentioned you were starting to talk about the DevOps teams taking a role in addressing some of these issues for organizations.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Sean, right? So there are multiple teams that are using ML models and they're downloading it, and it's basically dispersed within the organization. So there is one place where they want to make sure that it is curated as well. And even from an audit capability perspective.
Oh my. The internet is not cooperating with Shubha. She's saying these interesting things, and the internet is just like, no. But if I were to put I've worked with Shubha quite a bit, and I would imagine what she's probably going to say is something akin to, being able to audit where and how things are brought in. Shubha, I was trying to channel you and say, being able to audit where and how things are brought in and who's using it and who trained it and who did the data sets. Is something that is becoming essential for organizations to start to implement policies and procedures to govern things in a more proactive fashion.
Exactly. Sorry, guys, my internet, I don't know what happened. Suddenly there is some problem going on, but yeah. So yes, that's what I was referring to.
I would also say probably the most active area of regulations, because I track regulation across the world, is AI. Europe's AI model is live now, the regulations. Over here, each state is coming up with its own AI regulations. So we need to prove that we have safe, trusted data, safe models, that we're deploying them consistently. And here's the fun thing with AI is you need to monitor it differently from normal software. Software, you just monitor for vulnerabilities and issues. ML, we're looking for people trying to steal our data, trying to steal our models, trying to corrupt it, subvert it so it starts feeding wrong information or even code to your other customers. So this whole philosophy needs going, but it all starts off, as I say, to have a secure security posture, you have to have a strong foundation. And organizations are starting to realize that we need to have a strong foundation. And yes, I'm going to say the platform word again, and I'm going to get a t-shirt soon about this. But if you that whole process of managing, and you need to merge ML, dev, security, infrastructure together as a cohesive team to make this happen.
Right. It's AI, ML. Well, you mentioned ML's been around for a long time. AI is now the new fun buzzword, and obviously generative AI is something that's very powerful, but it's been around for a long time, and it's been in the lab. It's been those guys over there, guys and gals doing fun, funky stuff. But now it's in the mainstream. It's like smack dab in the middle of software development. And so how do you apply all those good practices that organizations have developed over the course of many years to this AI/ML process, so that it's not something off in the silo, so you don't have developers that are doing their own thing, playing, experimenting, bring it under one happy umbrella. So, okay. Good news, everyone. That was our last slide, but it is by no means inclusive of everything that is available in this data report. If you've joined us, we've dropped a link, the PDF of the report right there in the handout section. You can also find it online on the JFrog website under the resources tab. It's available. Go check it out. We would love your feedback on it. We put a lot of sweat and love and good vibes into that report, so we would love you to take a look at it. We did have one question come in, and so I want to throw it out there, and I'm going to try to, it's a very specific JFrog-y question. I'm going to try to wrap it perhaps under this tools and scanners consolidation topic that we talked about earlier. It says, while GitHub and JFrog are already partnered to unify code and binary in DevSecOps space, why should we use both GitHub Advanced Security and JFrog Advanced Security? Like, how does it make a difference? This goes exactly what we're talking about. Like, hey, why use two tools? And perhaps someone from marketing, not looking around here, should have say, why do we have two advanced securities in there? Shubha, I'll toss this one up to you to discuss.
So this actually relates to the slide that we were talking about, right? Code scanning versus binary scanning, or code scanning with binary scanning, and also choose the tools that will cover most of it. But then I don't think we have any tool in the market right there which covers the entire CI/CD process. So this is where you have to go ahead and choose what makes the most sense from an integration perspective, one from a coverage perspective, and one from a quality of the data that you're getting out of these perspective, right? So when you look at all of these things, when you take all of these things into picture, GitHub has some really cool, good code scanning capability, while JFrog brings in the binary scanning capability, right? So JFrog has SAS scanning as well, but our SAS scanning is also related, or we come from a binary perspective for that. So this is where I would definitely say that having the combination of GitHub and JFrog working together to bring you the best. And this was something that was brought by some of our largest customers, right? They were like, hey, you know what? We are planning to use GitHub and JFrog, and this is what we are going to be standardizing on. Can you guys work together to give us a solution that is seamless and provides the most value? And this was a conversation that happened a couple of years ago, or even before that. And that's what we came to the market with, right? So, and this is the value that companies are realizing who are using both GitHub Advanced Security as well as JFrog Advanced Security.
Great, thanks, Shubha. And it's probably important to note that we announced that second half of last year, and we continue to improve that relationship and the value that we're bringing, making it even more seamless, more integrated. Because you're right, there is some overlap. You know, in the Venn diagram, there definitely is some overlap. And so there's reasons to choose one versus the other for different things, and you can pick and choose how you're using those tools. Cool. It looks like with that, we are pretty much out of time. I want to go ahead and thank you, Paul. Thank you, Shubha, for joining me on this fun adventure through our software supply chains, taking it from the DevOps perspective, taking it from the security perspective, and trying to give people some real tangible nuggets that they could take back to their teams and say, hey, maybe we need to change our approach a little bit here and do this a little differently. Thank you both for presenting, for being here with us, and thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see you again soon, and please do, if you haven't already, go download the report, share it with your friends, put it on LinkedIn. It's great reading, and I'm not just saying that because I worked on it. So thank you, everyone. Have a great morning, evening, afternoon, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye. Be safe.
Bye-bye.